Mitch Marner. They got Mitch Marner for real.
Yeah. I mean, that was really the only thing that happened in free agency of note, and that was yesterday.
That was yesterday. It was made official today. I got to say here, before we even get started, first off, she's Taylor Haase. I'm Dejan Kovacevic. We cover the Penguins for DK Pittsburgh Sports. And no, we were not anticipating anything big today. I know you weren't, Taylor.
No, I mean, I wrote that yesterday just based off of everything Dubas said yesterday about what direction they're going to go. They were not going to make any kind of flashy moves or anything of note. That's just not what they wanted or what they thought they needed at this point.
Yeah, so in fact, you'll see is on the ticker across the bottom that, in fact, they really did very little. Alex Nedeljkovic got traded for a third-round pick to the Sharks, and it's a third-round pick in another millennium. So it was just basically we can start with that, Taylor. That's Dubas's way of basically saying, I've got Tristan Jarry. I trust him enough to be around here to be the veteran guy, but that there's still going to be an open 3-goaltender competition in training camp that would also include Yoel Blomqvist and Sergei Murashov. Is that reading it correctly?
Yeah, well, I mean, Dubas said that much, in his season-ending media availability that, Murashov and Blomqvist were going to, be in contention for spots. And it's like, well, how are they going to do that when they didn't really have any spots? I don't know if it's necessarily him just trusting Jarry. Just Ned was way easier to move. Just being what his contract was. He's a good backup, but like, why would a team take a flyer on Jarry? I think it's just easier. They wanted to free up a spot, and Ned was just the easy one to move out. So one of Blomqvist and Murashov, I think we both see time next year. I would say Blomqvist probably is up to start, but late in the year, if Murashov's playing well and if Blomqvist isn't, playing too well, then you can flip them. They're young. It's
keeping this real. Murashov, I think, can come in and go completely lights out, and they're still going to feel that he needs to have some sort of AHL seasoning. He's had so little experience there, and not all of it. It's not like it's been 100% positive either. So he's going to have some time there. But in the meantime, what you do is you bring up Blomqvist, who will be 23 years old. He can, in some form or other, share the net with Jarry, depending on which direction that goes. It's not like Jarry's in some kind of position to complain about being anybody's backup, given the kind of, talk about an up and down year that he had. Also today, the Penguins did bring back Connor Dewar and Phil Tomasino. They were RFAs, restricted free agents yesterday. And anytime a GM says, we're still in talks with those guys, you're almost for certain within 24 hours of hearing that they signed. So they all got what they wanted out of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, but this did happen last year where they didn't qualify P.O. Joseph. They said we're still in talks, but then P.O. just took too long to decide what he wanted to do, so they had to go on and sign Grizzly.
The offer was on the table.
Yeah, this year they so they didn't qualify Tomasino Dewar, so they avoided potential arbitration. They hit UFA. I guess they didn't get, offers that they liked. I mean, both of them said they wanted to come back at the end of the year, but I mean, of course, they're going to say that they were RFAs, but very 1-year deal for each of them, very easy contract. So it's kind of like a prove it year for them.
It's a prove it year for them, but it's also a place where they can prove it. That's something that's really important to stress here. And I can promise you that was part of Dubas's pitch to both of their agents. You say to him, listen, you can go somewhere else and get another $100,000. Okay. But if you're in Pittsburgh, you're actually going to play. We need you here to make sure that, they're pressing the kids and all that other stuff that he talked about. And on that note, Dubas fulfilled his pledge to sign. I mean, he didn't call him this, but I will, just a bunch of mediocre dudes.
Yeah.
Come in and make sure that the young kids aren't handed these jobs. So those guys, in no particular order, the ones that were gotten, I got to find all their names. There's no way you committed
Justin Brazeau, Parker Wotherspoon, Caleb Jones. So when I asked Dubas yesterday, like what direction, like what are you going to be doing in free agency? What direction are you going with this? He said players not in their 30s, and he said no 1-year deals, probably 2 or 3-year deals. And players who can come in and push, like service competition for those younger guys, but not block them. And that's what all 3 of these guys are. Wotherspoon and Brazeau are 28. I mean, 27. Jones is 28. None of them are that good, but they have played in the NHL. It's a lot of like split between the AHL and NHL for them. And then um, two of them have cap hits that can. Waterspoon and Jones could be entirely buried in the minors if they need to. Brazo, there'd just be like a little left. So there's nothing in their contracts that is going to block them from going down if one of the D loses out to like an Owen Pickering or whatever. But
Yeah,
it ensures that you're not going to hand a spot to Owen Pickering.
yeah, but they're fringe guys. It's what they are,
Yeah.
and it's I was joking about this yesterday. I was saying that what you're going to see today is like 3 or 4 Anthony Beauvilliers, and that's what you got for the most part. There's a couple of defensemen. There's a forward in there. Nobody's anything special. They all spent some time in the minor leagues in the very recent past. It is what it is. That tells me, though, and this is where it does get interesting. That tells me that he's got a line. He's got a set of lines. He's got a set of pairings. And he's got at least some kind of vision for what this looks like. Because if he's already at the stage, Taylor, where he can say, yeah, but we want this young guy to compete for that spot. Okay, I'm going to throw out a name here that I don't know how many, like, you have to be really an inside hockey fan to be aware of what kind of a season Tristan Brose had in Wilkes-Barre. He's a former second-round pick back when the Penguins' second-round picks used to be their first picks. So he was the main guy in that draft. He's taken a while to get where he is, but he made an impression in Wilkes-Barre, both as a player and a leader. And he is a guy that Dubas even acknowledged openly would have been called up to the NHL late this past season, except they really didn't want to have him getting mixed in with these other guys in front of it and ruin the whole fanfare of coming up and earning your spot in the NHL. He's going to be on the team this year in some form. It might not be right out of training camp, but he's going to be on the team. He's not going to have it handed to him, but there's a spot somewhere for him. Do you follow me on this? Like, if he profiles as a third liner or fourth liner, grit guy, whatever it is, they have a spot that they hope that he achieves. Does that make sense?
As far as like a specific line combinations, I don't
kind of.
I think they have like enough of the young guys can play multiple wings or play in multiple spots, and I mean like the D maybe like Pickering, there's the D they signed today are left-handed defensemen because they are competing specifically with Owen Pickering. But like Brose can play center and wing. They probably see him as more of a center at the NHL level. But I think they have enough guys who are in contention for spots who do play multiple spots that like it would be, I think, premature to say, oh, they pictured Philip Hallander as only a left wing or something like that.
Yeah, no, I mean that they have. I don't mean that they're sitting their third and fourth line and this and that. I mean that they have. Look, they have 12 forward spots like everybody else. They have 6 defense spots like everybody else. They have to have some advanced projection right now of who's there, who's not going to be there, who they think might not be there. And then from there, just say, all right, listen, we don't even have that many theoretical spots. To me, that's the message that was sent today.
No, I mean, they don't have a lot of spots, but also I even the guys they signed today do. I mean, they can play like multiple sides, multiple positions. Fine. But if they don't make it, then they just go down to Wilkes-Barre.
Right. That's the point here. So that nobody's getting handed anything. But that's what I'm saying. I think they have, not all the way, but I think they have to an extent. They have what they're going to have. I don't think there's some overarching thing that'll change everything.
Well, I would also...
Cody says here that the line identities have been drawn up. And like Taylor said, it's not about lines necessarily. It's not about defining the third line as a checking line or whatever. It's just that I think they have 12 guys.
I don't know, because Dubas did talk a lot about wanting to go after other teams' RFAs. And if they're going to do... Well, that's not something that can be done in just like the first day free agency. Like if you're going to put in an offer sheet, it takes time for like there's like a period the other player has to accept. So we wouldn't have found that out today.
Well, okay,
there's still time. Or if they're going to trade for an RFA, like that's something they're not going to rush. So.
Well, let's talk about RFAs in a second after we get to this question here. That comes from Chris Halleck's alter ego, Butthole, who says, how does Philip Hollander, it's a Steelers joke, don't worry about it. How does Philip Hollander fit in? Taylor, you go first. I have some information that I picked up on Hollander last week. I'll go after you.
Yeah, so I mean, when Hollander was here the first time, he was mostly a center. He goes over to Sweden, is a totally different player. And when Hollander did go back over to Timrå, he was playing exclusively as a left wing. So I think the Penguins, one of the Penguins equipment managers just left, but got another free agency departure. Anyway, back to Hollander. It's going to be as a left wing, but I think he's someone that can play up and down the lineup. But he's capable of playing all three positions. That's something Dubas said about him, but just based on where he found success in Sweden, it would be on the left side.
Okay, so Taylor's correct. Obviously, Hollander became a different player. He went over there. He did some things to strengthen himself. He already had a frame. When he was here with the Penguins originally, he had frame, an NHL frame. He didn't need to super fill out or whatever, but he did get stronger. He also really improved his skating. That has impressed this team's management. He has done things within his offensive game to not whenever he came over here originally, and I remember having a good talk with Billy Guerin about him back when Billy was with the Penguins. He said he's got that two-way feel about him and everything. And when I hear that, I think of someone who can't score. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I think most recently, I think of Vasily Ponomarev, and who just didn't impress me at all in the offensive zone, including in his short stint in the NHL. He didn't score much in the minors either. And I'm not all that interested in that. You're either going to be superb defensively or whatever, but don't be mid at both. Okay. And in Hollander's case, he took his game, especially for the Timrå club in Sweden, to another level. He became arguably the guy on that team from an offensive standpoint. They are very much impressed with him. People here are going to be surprised, I think, to see how prominent of a role he gets like that when he comes to Pittsburgh. He's not some work in progress.
No, I mean, and Dubas told me that when I talked to him while I was in Buffalo. I asked where Hollander fits in, and the way he talked about it is like he's like the other ones, like they're not going to hand him a spot, but he's probably, like, if you're looking at the depth chart of like the wings and where they're going to go, he's definitely going to be towards the top. And it helps that he can play all three forward positions, even though he's probably left wing.
And has played them, including recently too. It's not like he's abandoned one position for another. Swanky says Dubas needs to do something. There's going to be a lot of Swankies out there. Mm-hmm. So let a little tip of the cap here for all the Swankies. Here comes one of them. Dubas needs to do something in the trade market pronto, or we have another year of garbage. You can't be putting your hopes on Koivunen, on McGroarty, on Pickering, on Blomqvist to take a large step. Dude, you're not going to have any fun this year.
People need to
you're just not
get into their heads that like they're not going to be contenders, but they're also not trying to do that. I think if you just look at what they've done over the last like 18 months at least, is that like they're just not there yet. And then everything they've talked, that like Dubas has said about the direction they're going, it's about allowing these guys to have the opportunity to take that step. They're probably not going to be good. They're not going to have the supporting cast to be like a contenders. But if you can, over the course of the year, turn like Koivunen and McGroarty into top six guys and have Blomqvist fit at the NHL level and Pickering become an NHLD, then that's the goal this season. And then next season, maybe you actually start making the moves to try to contend. But the fact that it's not that they missed out on like big free agents this year. They didn't try because they're not there yet, because they're not trying to contend next season.
All right. Now you want my diabolical theory on the RFAs as promised earlier? Here's what I've got. I haven't done a cap check on the Penguins in a while. Have you?
Well, no, because you don't know who's going to be on the roster, so it's hard. Any cap number is just going to be
okay.
A projection.
But every move they're making.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't think it was all that high or close to the cap to begin with. like most years. I think they are, and a lot of people misuse the word unique. Unique derives from the French word for one. I think they might be in a literally unique position in the National Hockey League to totally blow somebody up with an offer sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And for Dubas to even mention it in advance, and then for the Rangers, just throwing it out there, because the Rangers are all going, and their fans are all going ballistic over Will Kyle, that he's going to be the guy that everybody's going to go chasing for offer sheets. There are other candidates like that out there. The days of the very visible, obvious collusion in the NHL are over. It's no longer uncool or unhip, or we're going to ostracize you if you issue an offer sheet. That ended when the Flyers chased Shea Weber in Nashville and forced the Predators to actually go to a Tennessee bank to take a loan out to make sure that they wouldn't lose Weber. The Penguins are in a position to do this. They're in a position to overpay, literally overpay for somebody else's young guy.
Okay. Two things.
Okay,
I think, well, so I think the stigma around offer sheets to this point is just like, by nature, you have to overpay because you have to be giving them more than they're getting from their own team. So I don't think it's more like, it's about respect for other GMs. You just have to be willing to overpay and have to be in a position to overpay, and a lot of teams aren't. But you're talking about like going after a big name guy. Once you're getting you have to give compensation as far as draft picks to the other team for a big salary guy. I forget what the thresholds are, but then you're talking about first round picks, and it has to be your own pick or the following year. If the Penguins are bad next year, this is not the year to be moving those first round picks when Gavin McKenna is going to be the first round pick next year. Like they cannot make an offer sheet big enough that where they're going to lose their first round pick. They might have the money, but you can't lose that first rounder. Not this year.
Among the players that are getting thrown around here a lot is that Mackie Samoskevich with the Panthers. The Panthers, everybody knows what kind of cap situation they're in and why. And they also know that the Panthers, for all the guys that they have kept in the past 48 hours, with Brad Marchand, Aaron Ekblad, the big one, Sam Bennett, and all the guys that the Panthers have kept, they still have some they're going to lose. And they don't have any money to be keeping any young guys that you might want to chase. So those are the kinds of teams that Taylor's talking about that you can easily victimize, if you go after them. If that's the usage that ends up coming about from Dubas's summer, and he's losing all this cap money, losing all this cap hit, sorry. And and I know that the Fenway Sports Group people have committed to spending up to the cap. Okay, and there's really, isn't it true that there's no carryover, the NHL cap?
No.
There's no, the NFL you can carry unused cap over to the following season. NHL, snooze, you lose. It's gone. So if you're looking at the Penguins roster right now, and you're looking at all these dudes making $975, okay, and that's what it looks like right now. Is it $775? What's the minimum now?
$775, but
$775
guys they signed today are all around $1 million.
Okay, but I'm saying you're looking at all these 775s and all these guys that are in six figures. What you're talking about here is a team that's going to be way below the cap by the time training camp starts. Even paying Gino, even paying Sid and Letang, and even paying Carlson his gazillion dollars if they can't move his contract, and Rust and Raquel, they're going to be way below. And just picture taking that money and just thieving somebody's young talent.
I just don't think it would be for an RFA where you would have to spend that much, because you would lose your first round pick. And then if, say, they move their first round pick to, I don't know, whatever, and that pick ends up winning the lottery next year and that team gets McKenna, like, that's not worth the RFA.
Wait,
and like,
refresh my memory on this. What happens to the first rounder?
So when you offer sheet, if you successfully offer sheet a player, there's based on the amount of money, there's a threshold like that for this much this pick goes to the other team as compensation, and it goes all the way up to 4 consecutive first-round picks.
Okay.
But it has to be in the following draft and your own picks. So, like, even though the Penguins have stockpiled picks, it can't be in one of those. It has to be their own pick. So if you get to the point where what they'd be giving the RFA creeps into the first-round pick territory, where that would be the compensation, you can't lose
because
that
of the
first-round pick.
scale, it's based on the scale of pay. Okay, I get it.
Based on what you offer. So you're talking about going after like a really big free agent, like then you're getting into the territory where you lose that first-round pick, and you just cannot do that when we're in Gavin McKenna's draft year, and he's like a potential generational talent. Like they're talking about him like another Crosby, McDavid. They're talking about him like they talked about like Bedard.
I think he'll be headed. He'll be headed to Buffalo.
So Clint Novak looked up I don't have the number in front of me, but in the chat he says up to 4.5 million. So you could do up to 4.5 million, but you're talking about like the big guys and offering more than that. So even though they have all this cap space, anything over 4.5, you just can't do that.
Well, make it 4.49 and grossly overpay for some kids. I'm totally in favor of it.
Well, they could also trade for good younger players. Like it doesn't have to be RFAs.
Except that they don't really have anything to trade for younger players.
1 million draft picks.
Obviously, that didn't work because he just tried it over the weekend. I've never understood why anybody would give up a young player that's a known commodity that you see unless they're one of those, like a situation like McGroarty's where they just don't want to be there and they want to get out, and then you can make a trade like that. But otherwise, those are tough moves to make. Josh Van says, "Don't be trading Rust. He'll be a mentor for the youth after Sid retires in 2-4 years. Don't trade Rust. Just don't."
He's a mentor now. He's like a leader now.
Yeah,
and whenever you say that, people
he's an example.
Well, no, I mean he's like an actual leader now. And whenever you say that, people are like, "Oh, well, how many leaders can you need when you have like Sid, Malkin, Letang,
a lot,
Carlson?" But also, like, if you're walking into a room and the only veteran, if you're like a rookie, if you're a kid coming up, and the veteran leaders are like those Hall of Famers, that's intimidating to walk into. Russ is not like an intimidating guy, even though he does have his own and he's just a good conduit between like the Crosbys and like the young guys. You still need guys like Russ and not just Sid, Malkin, Letang, Carlson.
No, exactly. Here, Sam wants our thoughts on trading Sid for a proper future. Sid's not going anywhere. I don't have anything to add to that. Sid's not going anywhere.
I'm so
future.
tired.
I know. Let's do this.
He does not want to go. He has a no movement clause. He doesn't want to go. As long as he wants to be back, they're going to keep bringing him back. He has 2 more years left.
JC comes at us with, what do you expect to see from Melvin Firmstrom this year? This is another interesting pickup for the Penguins this offseason. It's going to kind of fly under the radar, I think, until he gets to training camp. He has some significant experience overseas, even as a kid. And I think he's one of those who can come over here. And given I don't want to be mean here, but given the previous shallowness of the talent pool, it doesn't take much to move up on this particular list. I think, as we were talking about when we were discussing, when you did the top 10 prospect list was that just about a month ago for our website, it was like, guys just go right up it because it's just not that thick.
Yeah. I'd have to look it up. I'm most positive Fernstrom's going back to Sweden. I mean, like, they signed him, but he's also young enough that contract can slide if they send him back for a year. So it's just like to keep his rights. But I'm pretty sure he's going back to Sweden for next year. Like, he might. I'm like 90% sure he's signed for next. Yeah, he's signed. Orebro. I'm not saying that right, but he has an active contract over there, so he'll be going back. I mean, he'll come over for development camp. He probably won't be here for training camp this year because he'll be back in Sweden. But next year, like the following year, he'll probably be in Wilkes-Barre.
Rochelle comes in as a member today, and we welcome him. He's been an outstanding contributor into our Steelers community. And he took my threat seriously at the opening of the show that if you don't sign up for a membership to our Penguins channel, we will trade you to Buffalo. And we will do this mercilessly and unapologetically too. And you know what else? If you're good, Buffalo will trade you. They won't even get anything back. What a franchise.
Yeah, but no, Buffalo leads the league and like, oh my God, they had that guy. Like, if you look
Stupidity.
at like their rosters over the years,
You
of
ever see
guys,
the list of the 2022 Sabres? Or
yeah,
something like
it's like an
like
all-star team.
it's unbelievable. Like they have these all universe players on their fourth line. This was just, by the way, this is people who have just been Sabres in the past 5 years. Actual, not in their system, actual Buffalo Sabres in Buffalo, New York. You can put together the greatest hockey team you've ever seen.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, like Linus Olmark was on those teams. I don't know, like when they made the draft like this year and they picked like Radim Mertka in the first round, and there's like the pictures of him after looking miserable. I don't think he was miserable. That's just kind of from talking to him at the combine. I think that's just his demeanor. But like everyone was making fun of the pictures of their first round pick looking miserable, and it's like, no, this is great. He's gonna be great in a couple of years, like just somewhere else. He's gonna find a lot of success with another team.
Zach Watson says, besides all the reports of Kyle Dubas being a very likable guy, where does the confidence in Dubas come from with only one playoff round win in 5 years with Toronto and now 2 missed seasons here? First thing I got here for you, Zach, and I can't state this in loud enough, bold enough, neon enough letters. Everyone fails in Toronto. That's how it goes. You never judge anyone by how they do in Toronto. See also, Kessel, Phil. That's how it goes. Phil was a loser. Phil was a this. Phil was a that. He was it hot dogs and something else? Phil comes here. He's a legend. Immensely clutch performer, all kinds of points and everything. Pittsburgh will never forget him. You watch what's going to happen to Marner in Las Vegas. Mark my words on this. For that matter, if they lose Austin Matthews, watch what happens to him somewhere else. You think these guys are going to... Nuh-uh. It's the city that does it. It's the atmosphere that does it. As for Dubas, I'll let you speak to that one. Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, what you said in Toronto, I don't think Dubas has been responsible for not winning anything since 1967 in Toronto. But I mean, I think people are judging Dubas with the assumption that they've been trying to win the past couple of years, and they just haven't been. When he first came in, yeah, like he made a couple of moves, like with the intention of like, oh, they can still contend, and then before the end of his first season here, like he realized, okay, they just didn't have it, and it's actually time to start this retool. But then since, the Gensel trade is what really marked the change, like the retool.
Yes.
They accumulated the most picks of this draft, of the next 3 drafts, high picks over the next 3 rounds over the next 3 drafts. They've completely reshaped the prospect pool. Like they brought in actual prospects, and then they have all these picks too. I just think they've done a lot of good. But are they going to be a playoff team next year? Probably not. But that's also not what they're trying to do. So I don't think it'd be fair to say like, oh, Dubas hasn't made the playoffs at Pittsburgh yet, or they're not going to make the playoffs next year because they're not trying to. They're trying to load up for long-term success.
Yeah, and his point isn't to like we're in this to deliberately miss the playoffs either. No. When we're talking about not trying to, we're talking about that if your principal objective was to make the playoffs, you could keep a bunch of these guys they've kept, like Marcus Pettersson and so forth, and Jake, obviously. Okay, and you could have done all that, and they'd be in the playoffs. Okay, they wouldn't be getting anywhere, kind of like they hadn't for the previous 7 seasons. R. Allen has a question for Taylor, and I say it for Taylor because I know that she knows this, and I don't. What is Finn Harding's ceiling?
I mean, I don't know, like as far as like a pairing, but as far as their defense prospects go, he is one of their more interesting ones, which is great because they found him in the 7th round.
7th round. Okay.
Yeah. Last year, but then because he was like an overager when he had been passed over in his first draft year, so he's going to be in Wilkes-Barre last year. I talked to him. He went to Wheeling at the end of the year. just after his OHL season ended, and because there was no room for him to go up to Wilkes-Barre with like Bruinick and all those guys. He was great to finish the year in Wheeling, like adjusting to pro hockey. Or didn't seem to have any problem with it. Very physical. He's already very strong. Like he's built like he's gonna do well in pro hockey. He describes himself as like a defensive defenseman first. Like that's what he prioritizes. But then if you look at the numbers he's been putting up in the OHL, he produces a ton. I mean, this year especially, it was like a massive jump from last year. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but just a good, really well-rounded defenseman, and they found him in the 7th round.
Yeah, 7th round pick who started out with Wheeling. He's got to climb ahead of him. That's and as a defensive defenseman, there's a big climb in front of him. But Max Talbot was a 7th round pick, so he did kind of okay for himself. Patrick Hornqvist was the last pick.
Yeah, he was Mr. Irrelevant.
7th round, Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah.
Anthony wants to know from Taylor, Blomqvist or Murashov?
Blomqvist out of camp, but I also think that if we ever see a point where he's having like a tough stretch and Murashov's down in Wilkes-Barre lighting it up, then you just flip them, see what happens. It's not like it would be hard to do that mid-season. But I just think Blomqvist, because he has more experience, because he has been up in the NHL a little bit, he's probably going to get the job out of camp.
I'm all about Murashov, mostly because I feel like he's got that it factor, and I'm not alone in that one. There's something about the kid and the stuff that he does, including even in practice settings, including in drills and camp, where even the veterans go against him in certain situations and they go, the heck was that?
Yeah.
You have to understand, these dudes who skate, the ones who are out there for the Penguins, they see stuff none of us can see. They see stuff that even the coaches can't see, that film can't see, that analytics can't see. They'll see something that a kid does, and they'll come in the room afterward and they'll talk about it, mostly with each other. But every once in a while, they'll share something with one of us, like, I did something. I was trying to beat this guy. I'm making this up here just as a pure hypothetical, just to give you an example. They'll tell you something about a young player where I can't believe he saw me for that pass, or I can't believe this or that. Taylor and I can attest to this. We heard a lot of this type of thing, really specifically, both of us, late in the season about Ville Koivunen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where you heard guys who don't normally do the what the heck was that about that. And if I recall correctly, Taylor, a certain future Hall of Fame center had something to say to you about Koivunen.
I mean, I don't know which one you're talking about, because it could be
Gino. Well, no,
yeah,
what Gino said to you.
Yeah, I remember asking Gino about him, and he just raved about him and how he's looking better.
But it was not normal raves.
No, it wasn't. I remember the next day, I took that quote and I had it written down on my phone, and I showed it, because Koivunen grew up a massive Malkin fan, and I showed it to him, and he was starstruck. He didn't know how to handle that. But no, Malkin really loved playing with Koivunen. So,
but there is a separation between these two goaltenders in terms of age, experience, time in North America, ups and downs. One of the things that you always hear from development people, I'm sorry, just finish this thought here real quick. One of the things you hear from development people in all sports is they like to see you have setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And Murashov had a couple. Okay, not everything was all gold for him. And they actually prefer to see that, because they want to see how you're going to react.
I just think the timing of it, because everything was all gold for him all throughout his time in Wheeling. Well, he started in Wilkes-Barre, did okay, went down to Wheeling, incredible, wasn't losing, comes up to Wilkes-Barre, sets winning streak record, and then they get healthy, so he goes back down to Wheeling by the end of the year. When his setback came, it came for the playoffs. His worst, he didn't put multiple bad games together at all during the year, and then he goes down to Wheeling, and he's the starter, and he has 3 back-to-back-to-back,
and
very bad games.
Go ahead.
And then he comes, and then Blomqvist gets hurt in game 1 of Wilkes-Barre, so then he comes up.
He had to jump in, yeah.
And he had another bad game. No, I mean, he didn't come in mid game, like it was game 2 he started. He had 4 bad games. The one in Wilkes-Barre wasn't so bad. That was more on Dan Renouf and Sebastian Aho, that mess. But he had 3 really bad games in Wheeling, and it was right when the playoffs started. Which
and
was
one thing, if you look at the back of Murashov's figurative hockey card, you'll see that in his time overseas, he did not play many games. And that's a big adjustment for these younger guys too, especially when they come over from Europe. The seasons are a lot shorter. They also do a little bit of going up and down occasionally, especially in the Scandinavian leagues, where they'll spend some time in the main league and they'll spend other times in a developmental league, lower age group. It's not something that we really have here, not in that same sense anyway. And they just don't get on the ice as much. Well, in this case, this kid was riding around buses in the ECHL and everything else here. So I think he's to be forgiven for a late subsiding there as he did. Sean Knutson is going to get our second to last question in for the day. Feel free to actually come up with our last question. That hasn't come in yet. I'm going to wait for yours to come in. Sean has a good one. He says, how much are these youngsters going to need to contribute before Kyle Dubas decides to fortify the roster for a push at the playoffs? Like, what's it going to take? What percentage of this roster is going to need to be where you say, okay, listen, we're not going to wait years and years and years. Tristan Brose doesn't need to be a 4-time NHL All-Star before you get serious. What actually is it? What's the composition look like?
How much do the young kids need for next season? I think if you're nearing like the trade deadline and they're very clearly in a spot and doing well, then you go out there and build around them. But that's just like the team in general, not the young guys specifically. But like I think Dubas is like reactive. Like even they traded Gensel. I think if they were in a playoff position, they would not have done that. And so I think the same will happen this year. Like if they're clearly in a playoff spot and doing well with those young guys, then you build around them. So
let's see if we can find.
There's something in there about Anthony Mantha. I wanted to. It was like So Jay Woy, up 2 above this question in the thread.
Well, let me see if I can find it. Who's it from?
Jay Woy. It's 2 above the one that we're looking at right now. He says, how did Anthony Mantha not work out? The internet is crazy.
Oh God, this never happened.
No. So that's not the one I'm talking about. But yeah, someone just asked. So what happened? This is all that happened, and I think it comes like media literacy and like especially with like hockey fans, it's like non-existent.
Media literacy.
So. No, well, it's like a real thing. Like when you see something like let me like look into this source. Like, is this reliable? Where is this coming from? And that's not something people do anymore. So what happened was, a national, maybe like a radio guy who doesn't typically break things, tweets that keep an eye on the Penguins and Anthony Mantha. They're working on something. Didn't say anything's done. Didn't say done deal or even have any details. That blows up, and then the stupid NHL Network Twitter account, which is awful, and like they're always making mistakes with like roster kind of stuff like that. They make a graphic that says like Anthony Mantha reportedly signed in Pittsburgh, which he never, like that was never even a report. But then they don't source it. And then people don't look into it. But then it just kind of snowballs, and the people are like, yeah, the Penguins signed Anthony Mantha, and that never was like even reported at all.
What is a Pagnotta?
He was the one. I wasn't going to say his name. Sirius.
What is he? What is that?
Radio?
Is that a he or a she or what?
But even in Pagnotta's defense, he didn't report that they did it. He just said that they're talking with him, and maybe they could have been. Now it doesn't line up with
Who is this?
Anthony Mantha?
I've never heard of this person.
Yeah.
No, what's a Pagnotta?
Sirius XM Radio, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, Anthony Mantha, he's 30. It really doesn't line up with what Dubas said they were trying to do. The guys they did sign do line up with what they said they were trying to do. But anyway, Pagnotta didn't even say that they signed him. But for some reason, this spiraled, and then all these aggregator accounts keep pulling it, and they're sourcing each other. And then it spirals. And this is just how everything happens. One
What's
person.
The fourth period.
I don't know, but it's what this guy does.
Okay.
I think it's a radio show.
Hey,
I'm not.
listen, people. One thing we don't do on the Steelers show, and we're not going to do here, we're not here to fix everybody else's mistakes
Well,
or to get into something called a fourth period or a
he.
pagnata.
But
I
I'm
don't know
saying
what any of this is. We cover
he
the team.
he didn't mess anything up. All he said is like, oh, they've talked to him. It's
No,
like
they
the
haven't.
way
They don't know who the hell he is. And let's just call it like it is. I've never heard of this guy.
Anthony Mantha.
No.
Well, yeah, no. So he's saying, you obviously it's not coming from the Penguins. The fact that maybe
No.
the agent, but he could have.
Why would an agent call somebody named Pagnotta that nobody ever heard of? The whole thing doesn't make any sense.
A lot of people know who I've heard him. He's like a
who does he work for?
The NHL's Sirius XM radio guy. Like the NHL.
I've been on that network. I don't know how many times. I've never heard that name.
Okay, irrelevant. I just think that it's like the way Twitter and like all these accounts work now. It's like
now
someone
we're getting
can
warm.
say something speculating, like, "Oh, I think that Brian Rust would make sense in Buffalo," and then these crappy Twitter accounts or the Instagram ones that they make the graphics, they'll say like, Taylor Haase reports that like the Sabres are in on Brian Rust.
Yeah, I've seen
that. And like it's like
drives you nuts.
I don't know if they're intentionally misrepresenting it to get attention or if they just genuinely don't know what they're hearing. People like can't tell the difference between speculation and reporting anymore, and then it just spirals.
I mean, anybody can go on Twitter and say anything. You know, we just had somebody come in our comment section and completely make something up. I deleted it, but it's like, you know, anybody can do that. And then what happens is somebody leaves here and they say, "Oh, you know what I saw on this live video? I saw that." Da-da-da-da. No, man.
Yeah.
No,
and then someone just commented. I don't know if they're coming in late. They said the NHL network itself tweeted about Mantha reportedly to Pittsburgh. Yes, they are citing the Pagnotta.
Some dummy made a card. I saw it. They made a social media card.
The NHL network Twitter is very bad. I feel like anytime I see them talking about like free agency or the trade deadline, they're messing up like very basic details. And it's like, here's who the Penguins like pending free agents are, and they're listing guys who aren't or like wrong positions, and they're not good at.
Yeah, all they want is for you to find their accounts and to follow them and to repeat their names to make you think that they're actually somebody. There are one thing that Taylor and I get to experience in because our outlet travels to every game everywhere that the Steelers, Penguins, and Pirates play all over the world. Okay, including Stockholm, Sweden this year. We go everywhere, and we're with the team. We're covering the team. Okay, these other people are sitting in cubicles or sitting in their basements, just literally just throwing stuff up, hoping that you'll engage in it. And hockey fans, forgive me for this, are by far the most gullible when it comes to this stuff. It's Taylor, you don't have a comparison point because you stay in the hockey lane with what you do. Football fans and baseball fans would burn people like this alive.
The dumbest thing is like, because people are talking about the Crosby thing. Kevin Weeks tweeting the freaking pictures of like the cities with just like the eyeball emojis. Like he's done this specifically with Pittsburgh.
He's not even a reporter.
No, he is, and he does genuinely. He'll break news every now and then. He
only breaks stories that are related to goaltenders, and that's because he gets stuff that's information from agents who represent goaltenders.
Exactly, but either way, every now and then Kevin Weeks will have something.
That's not being a reporter.
I mean, that's kind of what it doesn't matter. But anyway, he does this thing. He'll tweet like a picture of one of the bridges with eyeball emojis, and then people are like, "Ooh, he's teasing something," and then that spirals, and it's like, "Oh, he's probably talking about Crosby getting traded to Montreal," and then it's like a game of telephone. They're like, Kevin Weeks is talking about Crosby going to Montreal, and I mean, Kevin Weeks actually has done the Crosby to Montreal.
And then when people get mad at him, he bites back.
But then I know that, but then like he'll do the eyeball emoji thing, and then 3 months later, if the Penguins make a trade, he'll quote tweet his eyeball emoji in the bridge and be like, "Per my report." And the people will be like, "Wow, he was on this." It's crazy.
The guy who's in our Steelers community. We're going to end the show here before we go on forever about this stuff. A guy who's a regular on our Steelers channel went at Kevin Weeks about that last one about the Sid thing. And he went at him in a DM, right? and he screen grabbed for me the response that Weeks sent to him. Because all he said was, "Why are you saying something about Sidney Crosby when you know it absolutely isn't true?" He came out totally civil and everything, right? And Weeks sends something back to him that says something like, "Who are you to question me about hockey?" Like, oh, dude, get over yourself. Lifelong backup goaltender, and you're sending out vague pictures of stuff, pretending that you're breaking news. Guys, we're going way too far off of this. No, Anthony, you would not like Weeks. There's nothing you would like about him. Send him the same message that our guy from the Steelers channel did and see what response that you get. I don't know. What was Ryan's question about Matt Grzelcyk? I don't get it. Did he sign somewhere?
No.
No, he's still out there.
Their only UFA that they let walk that signed elsewhere was Nate Clerman signed in Montreal.
Nate Clerman had a heck of a game in Pittsburgh. We'll never forget it. You know,
I managed to go the entire year without talking to him, and it's just because you had the game where he made his debut.
I had that game, and he was like Taylor. He was like, you would have really enjoyed it. He was like the nicest guy. He was so happy and so humbled to be there. But what the coolest part was that he genuinely played well. Now the coaches protected him.
Yeah.
Okay, Sully and David Quinn, they protected him. They had him go on only for offensive draws and stuff. But he was really, really good. All right, guys, listen, we're going to do this again, and we're going to be doing a lot of this in the future here. Going to say goodbye to you now. If you want to become a member and avoid being traded to Buffalo, go to dkps.net/join Penguins. That's the place to do that. All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.